Mastering the Mind, The Path to Inner Awakening, written and published by Stoic Guardian. Introduction. In a world filled with constant noise, digital distractions, and relentless demands on our attention, finding peace within our own minds has become one of the greatest challenges of our time. When I wrote Mastering the Mind, The Path to Inner Awakening, my goal was to provide a practical roadmap for those seeking to break free from mental turbulence and discover the profound stillness that lies beneath the surface of our thoughts. This book explores the transformative journey of awakening to our true nature, beyond the mind's incessant chatter. Drawing from ancient wisdom traditions and modern psychological insights, we delve into the nature of consciousness, the illusion of time, and the power of presence. Through practical techniques and deep understanding, you will learn to observe your thoughts without being consumed by them, dissolve emotional pain, and access the wellspring of wisdom that resides within. This is not another guide about suppressing thoughts or achieving a state of perpetual bliss. Instead, it offers a new perspective on the relationship with our minds, one that allows us to use this powerful tool when needed, without being constantly at its mercy. The path to inner awakening requires courage to face uncomfortable truths and openness to experiencing life in a radically different way. Though the journey may challenge long-held beliefs, the rewards of finding lasting peace and authentic connection with life are immeasurable. Chapter 1. You are not your mind. The mind is a constant companion, an ever-present voice that narrates our experiences, judges our actions, and shapes our perception of reality. From the moment we wake up to the time we fall asleep, it chatters incessantly, weaving stories about who we are, what we should do, and how the world works. This mental noise has become so familiar that we rarely question it. We assume that this stream of thoughts is who we are, that our identity is inseparable from the content of our minds. But what if this assumption is fundamentally flawed? What if the thoughts racing through your head are not your true essence, but merely a function of your brain, a tool that you can use rather than an identity you must embody? Consider for a moment the last time you were completely absorbed in an activity, perhaps playing a sport, creating art, or simply watching a beautiful sunset. In those moments of deep engagement, the constant mental chatter subsides. You are fully present, aware and alive. There is a sense of peace and clarity that transcends thought. These fleeting experiences offer a glimpse of your true nature, the awareness that exists beneath the surface of your thoughts. Recognizing that you are not your mind does not mean rejecting or suppressing thoughts. It means developing a new relationship with your mind, one where you can observe your thoughts without being consumed by them. It's about creating space between your awareness and the content of your consciousness. This shift in perspective can be profoundly liberating. When you no longer identify solely with your thoughts, you gain the power to choose which thoughts to engage with and which to let go. You become less reactive to the whims of your mind and more responsive to the reality of the present moment. Moreover, disidentifying from your mind opens the door to a deeper, more authentic way of being. It allows you to access intuition, creativity, and wisdom that often get drowned out by mental noise. You become more attuned to the subtle signals of your body and emotions, leading to better decision-making and a greater sense of overall well-being. Chapter 2. The greatest obstacle to enlightenment. The greatest obstacle to enlightenment is not external circumstances or lack of knowledge. It is not the challenges we face in our daily lives or the limitations of our physical bodies. The greatest obstacle to enlightenment is our own mind, specifically our unquestioning identification with it. From a young age, we are taught to value our thoughts above all else. We are encouraged to think critically, to analyze, to plan for the future, and to learn from the past. These are valuable skills, but when taken to an extreme, they can become a prison. We become so caught up in our mental processes that we lose touch with the simple, profound reality of the present moment. This over-identification with the mind creates a constant state of inner noise and conflict. We are rarely at peace because our minds are always seeking, always striving, always trying to solve problems or achieve some future state of happiness. Even when we achieve our goals, the mind quickly moves on to the next desire, the next problem to solve. This endless cycle of wanting and striving is what the Buddha identified as the root cause of suffering. Moreover, our minds are often filled with negative self-talk, judgments, and limiting beliefs. We replay past mistakes, worry about future outcomes, and criticize ourselves mercilessly. This inner dialogue creates a veil of anxiety and dissatisfaction that colors our entire experience of life. The mind's tendency to dwell in the past or project into the future also robs us of the only moment that truly exists, the now. We miss the beauty and richness of our immediate experience because we are lost in thought, planning, worrying, or daydreaming. Another way the mind obstructs enlightenment is through its constant labeling and categorizing of experience. Instead of directly perceiving reality, we filter everything through our mental concepts and beliefs. This creates a layer of abstraction between us and the world, preventing us from truly connecting with life as it is. Chapter 3. Freeing yourself from your mind. Freeing yourself from the grip of your mind is not about silencing thoughts or achieving a state of blank emptiness. It is about developing the capacity to observe your thoughts without being consumed by them. It is about recognizing that you are not your thoughts, but the awareness in which thoughts arise. The first step in this process is cultivating awareness. Begin to notice your thoughts as they arise. Watch them without judgment, as if you were observing clouds passing in the sky. This practice of mindful observation creates a space between you and your thoughts. In this space, you can begin to see that thoughts are not facts, but merely mental events that come and go. Another powerful technique is to focus on the present moment. When you find yourself lost in thought, gently bring your attention back to your immediate sensory experience. Notice the sensations in your body, the sounds around you, the breath moving in and out. This anchoring in the present moment helps to break the habit of constant mental chatter. Questioning your thoughts is also a crucial part of freeing yourself from the mind. When you notice a particularly persistent or troubling thought, ask yourself, is this thought true? How do I know it's true? What would I be without this thought? This inquiry can help to loosen the grip of limiting beliefs and negative self-talk. Practicing acceptance is another key aspect of mental freedom. Often our suffering comes not from our thoughts themselves, but from our resistance to them. By accepting thoughts and emotions as they arise, without trying to change or suppress them, we can reduce their power over us. Meditation is a powerful tool for developing all of these skills. Regular meditation practice helps to cultivate awareness, presence, and the ability to observe thoughts without getting caught up in them. Even a few minutes of daily meditation can begin to shift your relationship with your mind. It's important to remember that freeing yourself from your mind is a gradual process. You will not suddenly stop having thoughts or negative emotions. The goal is not to eliminate thoughts, but to change your relationship with them. With practice, you will find that you can engage with your thoughts when they are useful and let them go when they are not. Chapter 4. Enlightenment, rising above thought. Enlightenment is often misunderstood as a state of perpetual bliss or a complete absence of thought. In reality, it is a profound shift in consciousness, a way of being in which you are no longer identified with or controlled by your thoughts. It is a state of inner freedom, where you can engage with the world fully and authentically without the constant interference of mental noise. Rising above thought does not mean suppressing or rejecting thoughts. It means recognizing thoughts for what they are, temporary mental events that arise and pass away in the field of your awareness. In this state of enlightened consciousness, thoughts become tools that you can use when needed, rather than a constant, uncontrolled stream that dominates your experience. One of the key characteristics of enlightenment is presence. When you rise above thought, you become fully engaged with the present moment. You are no longer lost in memories of the past or fantasies of the future. This presence brings with it a deep sense of peace and aliveness. You experience life directly, without the filter of mental concepts and judgments. Another aspect of enlightenment is the dissolution of the ego, the sense of a separate self that is constantly seeking validation and fulfillment. As you rise above thought, you begin to recognize your true nature as awareness itself. This realization brings with it a profound sense of interconnectedness with all of life. Enlightenment also involves a radical acceptance of what is. When you are no longer identified with your thoughts, you can accept life as it unfolds, without resistance. This doesn't mean becoming passive or indifferent. Rather, it means responding to life from a place of clarity and wisdom, rather than reacting from conditioned patterns of thought. Rising above thought allows for a deeper, more intuitive way of knowing. Instead of relying solely on logical analysis, you become attuned to the wisdom of your body, your emotions, and your innate connection to the universe. This can lead to more authentic and aligned decision-making in all areas of life. Chapter 5. Emotion, the body's reaction to your mind. Emotions are not separate from thoughts, they are intimately connected. In fact, emotions can be understood as the body's reaction to the thoughts in your mind. This understanding is crucial for developing emotional intelligence and achieving greater inner peace. When a thought arises in your mind, it triggers a corresponding physical response in your body. This physical response is what we experience as an emotion. For example, if you have a thought about potential danger, your body might respond with increased heart rate, shallow breathing, and muscle tension, the physical sensations we associate with fear or anxiety. Understanding this connection between thoughts and emotions is empowering because it gives us a pathway to emotional regulation. By becoming aware of our thoughts and learning to question or reframe them, we can influence our emotional states. However, it's important to note that this process often happens so quickly that we're not consciously aware of the thoughts triggering our emotions. This is why mindfulness practices that cultivate awareness of both thoughts and bodily sensations are so valuable. They allow us to catch this process in action and intervene if necessary. Another important aspect of understanding emotions as bodily reactions to thoughts is recognizing that emotions, like thoughts, are temporary. They arise, peak, and pass away. When we're in the grip of a strong emotion, it can feel all-encompassing and permanent. But by observing our emotions with mindful awareness, we can see their transient nature. This doesn't mean we should suppress or ignore our emotions. Emotions serve important functions. They provide valuable information about our internal state and our relationship to our environment. The goal is not to eliminate emotions, but to develop a healthier relationship with them. Part of this healthier relationship involves learning to feel emotions fully without being overwhelmed by them. This means allowing ourselves to experience the physical sensations associated with an emotion without getting caught up in the mental story that typically accompanies it. Chapter 6. Consciousness, the way out of pain. Pain is an inevitable part of human existence, but suffering is optional. The key to transcending suffering lies in our consciousness, our awareness of our own thoughts, emotions, and experiences. By cultivating a deeper level of consciousness, we can transform our relationship with pain and find a path to inner peace. Consciousness is not just about being awake or alert. It's about being fully present and aware of our inner and outer experiences without judgment or resistance. When we operate from a higher level of consciousness, we can observe our pain, whether physical or emotional, without being consumed by it. This shift in perspective allows us to see pain for what it truly is, a temporary sensation or experience that arises in our field of awareness. Just as we are not our thoughts, we are not our pain. We are the consciousness that observes and experiences the pain. By cultivating this awareness, we create space between ourselves and our pain. This space allows us to respond to pain with wisdom and compassion, rather than reacting from a place of fear or aversion. We can acknowledge the pain without identifying with it or allowing it to define us. Moreover, increased consciousness often reveals the root causes of our pain. Many of our sufferings stem from unconscious patterns of thought and behavior. By shining the light of awareness on these patterns, we can begin to unravel them and free ourselves from their grip. Consciousness also allows us to tap into our inner resources for healing and resilience. When we're fully present, we can access our innate wisdom and strength, which are often obscured by the noise of our minds and the intensity of our emotions. The path to higher consciousness is not always easy. It requires courage to face our pain directly, rather than trying to numb or avoid it. It demands patience and persistence as we learn to stay present with difficult experiences. But the rewards are immeasurable, a life lived with greater clarity, peace, and authenticity. Chapter 7. Create no more pain in the present. The present moment is the only point of true power in our lives. It's where all our choices are made, all our actions are taken, and all our experiences unfold. Yet many of us unconsciously create pain for ourselves in this precious present moment through our thoughts, judgments, and resistance to what is. Creating no more pain in the present begins with acceptance. This doesn't mean passive resignation, but a deep acknowledgement of reality as it is right now. When we resist the present moment, wishing it were different or fighting against what is, we create inner tension and suffering. Acceptance allows us to align ourselves with the flow of life rather than struggling against it. It frees up the energy we would have spent on resistance, allowing us to respond to situations more effectively and creatively. Another key to creating no more pain is to release our attachments to specific outcomes. Much of our suffering comes from clinging to how we think things should be, rather than embracing how they actually are. By loosening our grip on our expectations and desires, we can find peace regardless of external circumstances. Mindfulness is a powerful tool for creating no more pain in the present. By bringing our full attention to the here and now, we can catch ourselves before we spiral into negative thought patterns or emotional reactions. We can observe our thoughts and feelings without getting caught up in them, allowing them to pass through our awareness like clouds in the sky. Practicing non-judgment is also crucial. Our minds have a habit of constantly evaluating and categorizing our experiences as good or bad, desirable or undesirable. This creates a constant state of dissatisfaction as we grasp for the good and push away the bad. By suspending judgment and simply experiencing life as it is, we can find a deeper sense of peace and contentment. Creating no more pain also involves taking responsibility for our inner state. While we can't always control external events, we always have a choice in how we respond internally. By recognizing this power of choice, we free ourselves from the victim mentality and empower ourselves to create positive change. Chapter 8. Past pain. Dissolving the pain body. The pain body is a term coined by spiritual teacher Eckhart Tolle to describe the accumulation of old emotional pain that we carry within us. This pain body is like an energy field of old hurts, traumas, and negative experiences that lives within our psyche and physical body. It can be triggered by current events, causing us to react disproportionately or relive old pain. Understanding and dissolving the pain body is crucial for our emotional and spiritual well-being. The first step is becoming aware of its existence. Many of us carry this old pain unconsciously, allowing it to influence our thoughts, emotions, and behaviors without realizing it. Awareness allows us to recognize when the pain body has been activated. We might notice ourselves overreacting to a situation, feeling inexplicably depressed or angry, or falling into familiar patterns of negative thinking. By catching these moments, we can begin to disidentify from the pain body. The key to dissolving the pain body is to bring the light of consciousness to it. When we feel old pain arising, instead of getting caught up in it or trying to push it away, we can simply observe it with mindful awareness. This act of witnessing without judgment begins to dissolve the pain body's power over us. It's important to understand that the pain body feeds on negativity and drama. It wants us to identify with it and act it out, perpetuating cycles of pain. By refusing to engage with it or fuel it with more negative thoughts and emotions, we gradually starve it of the energy it needs to survive. Practicing presence is a powerful antidote to the pain body. When we're fully present in the moment, we're not dwelling on past hurts or worrying about future pain. This presence creates a space in which old pain can surface and be released. Compassion is also crucial in this process. Many of us carry shame or self-judgment about our pain body, but beating ourselves up for having pain only creates more suffering. By approaching our pain with gentleness and understanding, we create a safe space for healing to occur. Physical practices can also help in dissolving the pain body. Since emotional pain is often stored in the body, practices like yoga, tai chi, or other forms of mindful movement can help release this stored tension and pain. Chapter 9. Ego identification with the pain body. The ego, our sense of self or identity, often becomes deeply entangled with our pain body. This identification can be so strong that we come to define ourselves by our pain, our struggles, or our past traumas. I am depressed, I am a victim, or I am broken, are examples of how the ego can merge with the pain body, creating a pain-based identity. This identification serves the ego's need for identity and continuity. Paradoxically, the ego can derive a sense of strength or specialness from pain and struggle. It might resist letting go of pain because, at some level, it fears losing its identity. Recognizing this ego identification is a crucial step in freeing ourselves from the grip of the pain body. It involves developing the ability to observe our thoughts and emotions without automatically believing or identifying with them. We can learn to say, I am experiencing depression, rather than I am depressed, creating a subtle but powerful shift in perspective. Breaking this identification often involves challenging our stories about ourselves and our pain. The ego loves to create narratives that justify and perpetuate our suffering. By questioning these stories and recognizing them as mental constructs rather than absolute truths, we can begin to loosen their hold on us. It's important to approach this process with compassion and patience. The ego's identification with pain often stems from deep-seated survival mechanisms. Judging or fighting against this tendency only creates more inner conflict. Instead, we can gently and persistently bring awareness to these patterns of identification. Practicing presence is a powerful way to break the ego's identification with the pain body. When we're fully present in the moment, we're not caught up in the mind's stories about past pain or future suffering. This presence allows us to experience our true nature, beyond the ego and its pain-based identity. Mindfulness meditation can be particularly helpful in this process. By observing our thoughts and emotions without judgment, we can begin to see the transient nature of our experiences, including pain. This perspective helps us to disidentify from our pain and see it as a passing phenomenon rather than a core part of who we are. Cultivating a sense of purpose or meaning beyond our personal pain can also help break the ego's identification with the pain body. When we connect with something larger than ourselves, whether through service, creativity, or spiritual practice, we expand our sense of identity beyond our personal struggles. Chapter 10. The origin of fear. Fear is one of the most primal and powerful human emotions. It has played a crucial role in our survival as a species, alerting us to potential dangers and preparing our bodies for fight or flight. However, in our modern world, fear often becomes disproportionate to actual threats, causing unnecessary suffering and limiting our potential for growth and happiness. The origin of fear lies in our evolutionary past. Our ancestors faced very real physical dangers on a daily basis, and those who were more attuned to potential threats were more likely to survive and pass on their genes. This has left us with a brain that is highly sensitive to perceived dangers, even when those dangers are not life. In our contemporary lives, most of our fears are psychological rather than physical. We fear rejection, failure, uncertainty, and loss of control. These fears often stem from our ego's need for security and its resistance to change. The ego, which is essentially our self-position or identity, feels threatened by anything that challenges its sense of who we are or how the world should be. Another significant source of fear is our mind's tendency to project into the future. We create scenarios of potential problems or disasters, triggering fear responses to events that haven't happened and may never happen. This ability to anticipate future threats was once crucial for survival, but now often leads to chronic anxiety and stress. Our fears are also shaped by our past experiences and conditioning. Traumatic events can leave deep imprints on our psyche, creating fear responses that persist long after the original danger has passed. Similarly, we may inherit fears from our family or culture, adopting them unconsciously as part of our worldview. The media and our interconnected world contribute to fear as well. We're constantly exposed to news of disasters, crimes, and potential threats from around the globe, which can create a sense of ongoing danger even when our immediate environment is safe. Understanding the origin of our fears is the first step in transcending them. By recognizing that many of our fears are based on outdated survival mechanisms or imagined future scenarios, we can begin to question their validity in our current reality. This doesn't mean ignoring genuine threats, but rather developing a more balanced and realistic assessment of risk. Chapter 11. The Ego's Search for Wholeness. The ego, our sense of self, or I, is constantly engaged in a search for wholeness, completeness, and fulfillment. This search is driven by a fundamental misunderstanding, the belief that we are separate, incomplete beings who need to acquire something external to become whole. At its core, the ego is a mental construct, a collection of thoughts, memories, and identifications that we mistake for our true self. It is inherently unstable and insecure, always seeking validation and reinforcement from the outside world. This insecurity drives the ego's relentless pursuit of wholeness through various means. One common strategy is the accumulation of possessions, achievements, or experiences. The ego believes that if it can just acquire enough, whether it's money, status, knowledge, or spiritual experiences, it will finally feel complete. But this strategy is doomed to failure because no external acquisition can fill the internal sense of lack that the ego experiences. Another approach the ego takes is seeking validation and approval from others. It craves recognition, respect, and love, believing that these will confirm its worth and completeness. However, this too is a futile pursuit, as external validation is always temporary and can never truly satisfy the ego's deep-seated insecurity. The ego also seeks wholeness through identification with various roles, beliefs, and group identities. It might strongly identify as a parent, a professional, a member of a particular religion or political party. While these identifications can provide a temporary sense of security and belonging, they ultimately limit our true nature and perpetuate the illusion of separateness. Relationships are another arena where the ego seeks wholeness. It often believes that finding the perfect partner will complete it and bring lasting happiness. This puts an impossible burden on relationships and inevitably leads to disappointment when the other person fails to fulfill this unrealistic expectation. The irony of the ego's search for wholeness is that it perpetuates the very sense of lack and incompleteness it's trying to overcome. By constantly seeking, striving, and grasping, the ego reinforces the belief that something is missing, that we are not enough as we are. The truth is that the wholeness the ego seeks has been present all along. Our true nature, which lies beyond the ego, is already complete, already whole. It is only the ego's incessant activity and identification with thoughts and forms that obscures this inherent wholeness. Recognizing the futility of the ego's search for wholeness is a crucial step on the spiritual path. It allows us to begin disidentifying from the ego and its endless pursuits. We can start to find peace and fulfillment not through acquiring or achieving, but through realizing our true nature as awareness itself. This shift doesn't mean we stop engaging in activities or pursuing goals. Rather, it changes our relationship to these pursuits. Instead of desperately seeking completion through them, we can enjoy them as expressions of our inherent wholeness. We can live and act from a place of fullness rather than lack. Practices like meditation, self-inquiry, and mindfulness can help us see through the ego's illusions and connect with our true nature. By consistently turning our attention inward and questioning our assumptions about who we are, we can gradually loosen the ego's grip and experience the peace and wholeness that are our birthright. Chapter 12. Moving deeply into the present moment is the only point of true existence, yet most of us spend our lives lost in thoughts about the past or future. Moving deeply into the now is not just a spiritual concept, but a practical approach to living that can transform our experience of life. It's about fully engaging with the reality of this moment, free from the mental noise that usually clouds our perception. To move deeply into the now, we must first recognize how rarely we're actually present. Our minds are constantly pulling us into memories, plans, worries, and daydreams. This constant mental activity creates a veil between us and the richness of our immediate experience. By bringing our attention to the present moment, we pierce through this veil and connect directly with life as it's unfolding. One powerful way to anchor ourselves in the now is through sensory awareness. By deliberately focusing on what we can see, hear, feel, smell, and taste right now, we pull ourselves out of our mental narratives and into direct experience. This simple practice can bring a sense of aliveness and clarity that's often missing when we're lost in thought. Another aspect of moving deeply into the now is accepting the present moment as it is. This doesn't mean we have to like everything that's happening, but rather that we stop arguing with reality. When we resist what is, we create inner tension and suffering. Acceptance allows us to respond to life from a place of clarity and wisdom, rather than reacting from conditioned patterns. Presence also involves letting go of our constant need to label and categorize our experiences. Our minds habitually judge everything as good or bad, desirable or undesirable. By suspending this judgment, even for brief moments, we can experience life more directly and fully. Moving deeply into the now is not about achieving a particular state of mind. It's about allowing ourselves to be fully with whatever is arising in this moment, whether it's joy, pain, boredom, or excitement. This radical openness to all of our experience is the gateway to inner peace and true aliveness. Chapter 13. Don't seek yourself in the mind. The mind is a powerful tool, but it's not the source of our true self. Many of us have been conditioned to believe that we are our thoughts, that our identity is defined by the content of our minds. This belief leads to a constant search for self-definition through thinking, analyzing, and conceptualizing. But the self we're seeking can't be found in the mind, because it's not an object of thought, it's the awareness in which all thoughts arise. Seeking yourself in the mind is like trying to bite your own teeth or see your own eyes. The mind can't grasp the self, because the self is what's aware of the mind. It's the subject, not the object of experience. When we try to find ourselves through thinking, we're always one step removed from direct experience of our true nature. This doesn't mean that thinking is bad or that we should try to stop our thoughts. Rather, it's about recognizing that our essence lies beyond the realm of thought. Our true self is the awareness that's present whether we're thinking or not, the consciousness that remains unchanged amidst the ever-changing content of our minds. To experience this, we need to shift our attention from the objects of awareness, thoughts, sensations, emotions, to awareness itself. This can feel strange at first, because we're so used to focusing on the content of our experience. But with practice, we can begin to sense the presence of awareness that's always here, always now. Meditation is a powerful tool for this exploration. By sitting quietly and observing our thoughts without getting caught up in them, we can begin to experience the spaciousness of awareness in which thoughts arise and pass away. We start to recognize that we are not our thoughts, but the awareness of thoughts. Another approach is self-inquiry, asking questions like, "Who am I?" or "What is aware of this experience?" These questions are not meant to be answered by the mind, but to point us towards direct recognition of our true nature. As we stop seeking our self in the mind, we may experience a profound shift in our sense of identity. Instead of feeling like a separate self defined by our thoughts and personal history, we begin to sense our connection to a vast, boundless awareness that's the essence of all being. Chapter 14. End the delusion of time. Time is one of the most pervasive and persistent delusions of the human mind. We tend to perceive our lives as a journey from past to future, with the present moment as a brief transition between the two. This perception creates a constant sense of tension, as we're always trying to get somewhere other than where we are. The truth is that the past and future exist only as thoughts in our minds. The past is a memory, a mental reconstruction of events that no longer exist. The future is an imagination, a projection of possibilities that haven't happened yet. The only reality we ever experience is the present moment. Ending the delusion of time doesn't mean we can't plan for the future or learn from the past. It means recognizing that all planning and learning happen in the now. When we're fully present, we can use the mind's ability to remember and anticipate without getting lost in regret about the past or anxiety about the future. One way to break free from the delusion of time is to practice being fully present in our daily activities. When we're eating, we can focus entirely on the experience of eating, the tastes, textures, and sensations. When we're walking, we can be fully aware of each step, the movement of our body, the feeling of the ground beneath our feet. Another powerful practice is to regularly pause and become aware of the present moment. We can take a few deep breaths and notice what's happening right now. The sounds around us, the sensations in our body, the thoughts passing through our mind. This simple act can break the spell of time and bring us back to the reality of now. It's also helpful to observe how our minds create a sense of time through storytelling. We're constantly narrating our lives, creating a linear narrative that connects past events to future possibilities. By becoming aware of this mental process, we can start to see through it and recognize the timeless presence that underlies all our experiences. As we end the delusion of time, we may find that our experience of life becomes richer and more vibrant. Without the constant pull of past and future, we can fully engage with the reality of this moment. We may discover a deep sense of peace and aliveness that's always available when we're not caught in the mind's time-bound narratives. Chapter 15. The concept that nothing exists outside the now is a profound truth that can radically transform our perception of reality. It's not just a philosophical idea, but a direct insight into the nature of existence. When we deeply investigate our experience, we find that everything we know, everything we perceive, everything we are, exists only in this present moment. The past, which we often believe to be a solid reality, exists only as memories in the present moment. These memories are not the actual events of the past, but mental reconstructions happening now. Similarly, the future exists only as thoughts and imaginings in the present. Even our anticipation of the next moment is occurring in this moment. Our entire lives unfold in a series of nows. We never actually experience any moment other than the present one. The moment we call now is constantly changing, but the nowness itself, the quality of present awareness, remains constant. This understanding has profound implications for how we live our lives. If nothing exists outside the now, then this moment is all we ever have. It means that life is always happening now, not at some future point when our conditions improve or we achieve our goals. It shifts our focus from constantly trying to get somewhere else to fully engaging with what is here now. Recognizing that nothing exists outside the now also frees us from much of our psychological suffering. Most of our stress, anxiety, and regret come from dwelling on the past or worrying about the future. When we realize that these are just thoughts occurring in the present, we can let go of their grip on us and return to the peace of the present moment. This doesn't mean we can't plan for the future or learn from the past, but it changes our relationship to these mental activities. Instead of getting lost in them, we can use them as tools while remaining grounded in present awareness. Practicing this understanding involves continually bringing our attention back to the present moment. We can notice the tendency of our minds to drift into thoughts about past and future, and gently redirect our focus to what's actually happening now. This might be the sensations in our body, the sounds around us, or the simple fact of being aware. As we deepen our realization that nothing exists outside the now, we may find a profound sense of freedom and aliveness. We're no longer postponing life to some future moment, but fully participating in the only moment there is, this one. We may discover that the peace, joy, and fulfillment we've been seeking have been here all along, in the depths of the ever-present now. We're no longer postponing life, the sun and the moon, as you hear now. Chapter 16. The Key to the Spiritual Dimension. The key to the spiritual dimension lies in our ability to access the present moment fully and completely. This isn't about adopting a new belief system or achieving a particular state of mind. It's about awakening to the reality that's always here, beneath the surface of our thoughts and perceptions. The spiritual dimension is not separate from our everyday reality. It's the depth and aliveness that we can experience when we're fully present. It's the sense of connection and wholeness that emerges when we drop our mental barriers and open ourselves to the fullness of this moment. To access this dimension, we need to shift our attention from the content of our experience to the awareness in which all experience occurs. This awareness is always present, always open, always at peace. It's the background against which all the drama of our lives plays out. One way to make this shift is through the practice of presence. This involves bringing our full attention to whatever we're doing, whether it's washing dishes, walking in nature, or having a conversation. As we do this, we may notice a sense of aliveness and clarity that's often missing when we're lost in thought. Another key is learning to disidentify from our thoughts and emotions. This doesn't mean suppressing or rejecting them, but rather observing them without getting caught up in their stories. We can learn to see thoughts as mental events passing through our awareness, rather than absolute truths about reality. Silence and stillness are also powerful gateways to the spiritual dimension. By regularly taking time to be quiet and still, we create space for deeper insights and experiences to emerge. This might involve formal meditation practice, or simply taking moments throughout the day to pause and be present. As we access the spiritual dimension more frequently, we may find that our perception of reality begins to shift. We may experience a sense of interconnectedness with all of life, a deep peace that's independent of external circumstances, or moments of profound joy and gratitude for simply being alive. Chapter 17. Accessing the Power of the Now. Accessing the power of the now is about tapping into the immense potential that exists in this present moment. It's a practice of bringing our full attention and energy to whatever is happening right now, rather than dispersing it through worry about the future or regret about the past. The first step in accessing this power is to become aware of our tendency to resist the present moment. We often unconsciously reject what is happening now, wishing it were different or believing that our happiness lies in some future state. This resistance creates inner tension and cuts us off from the aliveness of the now. To counter this, we can practice acceptance of what is. This doesn't mean we have to like everything that's happening, but rather that we stop fighting against the reality of this moment. When we accept what is, we free up enormous amounts of energy that we can then use to respond effectively to life's challenges. Another key aspect of accessing the power of the now is learning to be fully present in our daily activities. This means bringing our complete attention to whatever we're doing, whether it's eating a meal, having a conversation, or working on a project. As we do this, we may find that our experience becomes richer and more satisfying, and that we're able to perform tasks with greater efficiency and creativity. Mindfulness of our body and breath can be a powerful anchor to the present moment. By regularly bringing our attention to physical sensations or the rhythm of our breath, we can pull ourselves out of mental loops and into direct experience of the now. It's also important to create spaces of awareness in our daily life. This might involve taking short breaks throughout the day to simply be present, or setting aside time for meditation or contemplation. These pauses allow us to reset our attention and reconnect with the power of the now. As we practice accessing the power of the now, we may find that we're able to respond to life's challenges with greater clarity and effectiveness. We may experience a sense of flow in our activities and a deep peace that's independent of external circumstances. We may discover that the present moment, fully embraced, contains all the fulfillment and aliveness we've been seeking. Chapter 18. Letting go of psychological time. Psychological time is the mind's tendency to dwell in the past or project into the future, creating a sense of self that's based on memory and anticipation rather than present reality. Letting go of psychological time is crucial for experiencing the fullness of life and accessing our true potential. The first step in letting go of psychological time is becoming aware of how often our minds pull us away from the present moment. We can start to notice when we're lost in memories, replaying past events, or imagining future scenarios. This awareness itself begins to loosen the grip of psychological time. It's important to recognize that our memories of the past are not the past itself, but mental reconstructions happening in the present. Similarly, our thoughts about the future are not reality, but projections based on past experiences and current fears or desires. By seeing this clearly, we can start to disidentify from these mental constructs. Practicing presence is a powerful antidote to psychological time. This involves deliberately bringing our attention to our current experience, the sensations in our body, the sounds around us, the task at hand. As we do this repeatedly, we strengthen our ability to stay grounded in the now. Another helpful practice is to observe the stories our minds create about past and future without getting caught up in them. We can learn to see these narratives as mental events rather than absolute truths about reality. This creates a space of freedom in which we can choose whether to engage with these thoughts or return our attention to the present moment. It's also beneficial to cultivate an appreciation for the richness of the present moment. When we're fully engaged with what's happening now, we often find that it's far more satisfying than our mental projections about past or future. This appreciation can naturally draw us out of psychological time and into the aliveness of the now. As we let go of psychological time, we may experience a profound shift in our sense of self. Instead of feeling like a character in an ongoing story, we may start to sense ourselves as the awareness in which all experiences, including thoughts about past and future, arise and pass away. Chapter 19. Negativity and suffering have their roots in time. Negativity and suffering are intrinsically linked to our mind's preoccupation with time. When we examine our negative emotions and experiences of suffering closely, we often find that they stem from thoughts about the past or future rather than from our direct experience of the present moment. Regret, guilt, and resentment are all rooted in our attachment to the past. We replay painful memories, wishing things had been different, or hold on to grudges from past hurts. This keeps us trapped in cycles of negativity, unable to fully engage with the present moment. Anxiety, worry, and fear, on the other hand, are usually focused on the future. We project worst-case scenarios, fret about potential problems, or feel overwhelmed by upcoming challenges. This future-oriented thinking creates suffering in the present moment, even when our current circumstances may be perfectly fine. Even when we experience physical pain or discomfort in the present, our suffering often comes from our mind's projection of this pain into the future. We worry about how long it will last or how it might impact our lives, amplifying our distress beyond the actual sensation. To break free from this time-based negativity and suffering, we need to bring our attention fully into the present moment. When we're truly present, we may find that many of our problems exist only in our thoughts about past or future, not in our actual experience of now. Mindfulness practices can be particularly helpful in this regard. By learning to observe our thoughts and emotions without getting caught up in them, we can start to see how our mind creates suffering through its preoccupation with time. We can then choose to redirect our attention to the present moment, where we often find a sense of peace and aliveness that's independent of our mental narratives. It's also important to recognize that the present moment is always manageable. When we bring our full attention to what's happening right now, we often find that we have the resources to deal with whatever arises. It's our thoughts about past and future that often overwhelm us and create a sense of helplessness. As we practice staying present and letting go of our attachment to psychological time, we may find that negativity and suffering naturally diminish. We become more capable of responding to life's challenges with clarity and wisdom, rather than reacting from conditioned patterns based on past experiences or future fears. Chapter 20. Our life situation refers to the external circumstances of our lives, our job, relationships, financial status, and so on. While these aspects are important, they are not the essence of who we are. Beneath the surface of our life situation lies a deeper dimension of life itself, the raw, unfiltered experience of being alive in this moment. To find the life underneath your life situation, start by recognizing the difference between the two. Your life situation exists in psychological time. It's a story your mind tells about who you are and what's happening to you. The life underneath is always in the present moment. It's the direct, immediate experience of being. One way to access this deeper dimension is through mindful awareness of your body and breath. Take a moment to feel the aliveness in your hands, the sensation of your breath moving in and out. These simple experiences are part of the life underneath your life situation, always available regardless of external circumstances. Another approach is to practice being the observer of your thoughts and emotions. Instead of getting caught up in the mental narrative about your life situation, watch these thoughts and feelings arise and pass away. This creates a space of awareness in which you can experience the life underneath more directly. Nature can be a powerful gateway to this deeper dimension of life. When we immerse ourselves in natural surroundings, we often naturally drop out of our mental stories and into direct experience. The sight of a beautiful sunset, the sound of a flowing stream, or the feel of wind on our skin can awaken us to the aliveness that's always present. It's also helpful to regularly question your assumptions about who you are and what you need to be happy. Many of these beliefs are tied to our life situation and keep us from experiencing the fullness of life in the present moment. By challenging these assumptions, we can open ourselves to a more direct and authentic way of being. As you become more attuned to the life underneath your life situation, you may find a sense of peace and contentment that's independent of external circumstances. You may discover a deep well of creativity and intuition that was previously obscured by mental noise. Most importantly, you may experience a profound sense of aliveness and connection to the present moment. Chapter 21. All problems are illusions of the mind. The statement, "All problems are illusions of the mind," is a profound insight that can radically transform our relationship with life's challenges. It doesn't mean that difficulties don't exist in our lives, but rather that our mind's interpretation and resistance to these difficulties is what creates our experience of them as problems. To understand this, we need to distinguish between a situation and a problem. A situation is a set of circumstances that exists in the present moment. A problem, on the other hand, is our mind's reaction to the situation, our thoughts, judgments, and emotional responses that often project into the future or dwell on the past. For example, if you lose your job, that's a situation. The problem arises when your mind starts generating worried thoughts about the future, feelings of failure, or resentment about the past. The situation itself exists only in the present moment, but the problem exists in psychological time. Recognizing that problems are mind-made doesn't mean we ignore challenging situations. Instead, it allows us to approach them with greater clarity and effectiveness. When we're not caught up in the mental drama of a problem, we can respond to the situation from a place of presence and wisdom. One way to put this understanding into practice is to focus on what is rather than what should be. When we resist the reality of our current situation, we create inner conflict and suffering. By accepting what is, we free up energy to take appropriate action if needed. It's also helpful to bring our attention fully into the present moment when we're facing challenges. Often we'll find that in this moment right now, we're actually okay. Our suffering comes from thoughts about the past or future, not from our direct experience of now. Another powerful practice is to observe our thoughts and emotions without identifying with them. We can learn to see our mental narratives about problems as just that, narratives, not absolute truths about reality. This creates a space of freedom in which new insights and solutions can emerge. As we deepen our understanding that all problems are illusions of the mind, we may find that many of our difficulties naturally dissolve. We become more capable of meeting life's challenges with equanimity and resourcefulness, no longer at the mercy of our mind's tendency to create problems where none truly exist. Chapter 22. A quantum leap in the evolution of consciousness. The concept of a quantum leap in the evolution of consciousness suggests that humanity is on the brink of a significant shift in awareness. This isn't a gradual change, but a sudden, dramatic transformation in how we perceive ourselves and the world around us. This leap involves moving from a state of identification with our thoughts and emotions to a recognition of our true nature as the awareness in which all experiences arise. It's a shift from living primarily in psychological time, constantly pulled between past and future, to being fully present in the now. One sign of this evolutionary leap is the growing interest in mindfulness and spiritual practices across the globe. More and more people are recognizing the limitations of a purely materialistic worldview and seeking a deeper understanding of consciousness and reality. Another indicator is the increasing recognition of the interconnectedness of all life. As we evolve in consciousness, we begin to see beyond the illusion of separateness and recognize our fundamental unity with all of existence. This shift has profound implications for how we treat each other and our planet. The quantum leap in consciousness also involves a move away from ego-based thinking towards a more inclusive, compassionate way of being. As we disidentify from our personal stories and connect with our deeper essence, we naturally become more empathetic and less driven by self-interest. It's important to note that this evolutionary leap doesn't happen automatically or uniformly across all of humanity. It requires individual awakening and conscious participation. Each person who undergoes this shift in awareness contributes to the collective evolution of human consciousness. Practices that can facilitate this quantum leap include meditation, self-inquiry, and mindfulness. These tools help us to step back from our habitual patterns of thinking and perceiving, creating space for a new level of awareness to emerge. As more individuals make this leap in consciousness, it creates a ripple effect, influencing those around them and gradually shifting the collective consciousness of humanity. This evolution has the potential to address many of the critical challenges facing our world today, from personal suffering to global conflicts and environmental crises. Chapter 23. The Joy of Being. The joy of being is a profound state of contentment and aliveness that arises when we fully embrace the present moment. Unlike happiness, which is often dependent on external circumstances, the joy of being is an inherent quality of our true nature, always available beneath the surface of our thoughts and emotions. To access this joy, we must first recognize that our habitual search for happiness in external objects, achievements, or relationships often leads to disappointment. True joy doesn't come from getting what we want, but from connecting with the deepest part of ourselves that is already complete and at peace. One way to experience the joy of being is through the practice of presence. By bringing our full attention to the here and now, we can tap into the aliveness that permeates every moment. This might involve focusing on the sensations in our body, the sounds around us, or the simple fact of our own existence. Nature can be a powerful catalyst for experiencing the joy of being. When we immerse ourselves in natural surroundings, we often naturally drop out of our mental chatter and into a state of presence. The beauty of a sunset, the majesty of mountains, or the intricate design of a flower can awaken us to the wonder and joy inherent in existence itself. Another approach is to practice gratitude for the simple facts of our being. We can appreciate the miracle of our breath, the incredible complexity of our body, or the gift of consciousness itself. This appreciation can shift our attention from what we lack to the abundance that's always present. It's important to note that the joy of being doesn't exclude other emotions. We can experience sadness, anger, or fear while still being connected to this deeper sense of joy. In fact, allowing ourselves to fully feel all emotions without resistance can deepen our experience of the joy of being. Meditation and mindfulness practices can be powerful tools for accessing the joy of being. These practices help us to disidentify from our thoughts and connect with the silent awareness that underlies all experience. As we become more familiar with this dimension of ourselves, we may find that joy naturally bubbles up from within, independent of external circumstances. The joy of being is not something we need to create or achieve. It's already here, in this moment, waiting to be recognized. As we learn to shift our attention from our mental narratives to the simple fact of our existence, we open ourselves to a profound sense of peace, aliveness, and joy that is our birthright. As we cultivate this connection to the joy of being, we may find that it transforms our entire experience of life. We become less dependent on external sources of happiness and more capable of finding fulfillment in the simple moments of our daily lives. This shift not only enhances our own well-being, but also positively impacts our relationships and our interaction with the world around us. Chapter 24. Mind Strategies for Avoiding the Now. The mind has developed numerous strategies for avoiding the present moment, often without our conscious awareness. These strategies serve to keep us trapped in psychological time, preventing us from experiencing the fullness and aliveness of the now. One common strategy is constant thinking. The mind maintains a ceaseless stream of thoughts, analyzing past events, planning for the future, or commenting on the present. This mental chatter creates a veil of concepts and judgments that obscures our direct experience of reality. Another strategy is the creation of problems. The mind has a tendency to turn situations into problems, generating worry, anxiety, and stress. This problem-orientated thinking keeps us focused on an imagined future or a regretted past, pulling us away from the present moment. The mind also employs the strategy of identification with emotions. By fully identifying with our emotional states, we become consumed by them, losing touch with the awareness that underlies all emotional experiences. This identification can keep us trapped in cycles of reactivity and suffering. Distraction is another powerful avoidance strategy. The mind constantly seeks stimulation, whether through technology, entertainment, or busyness. This constant engagement with external stimuli prevents us from turning our attention inward and experiencing the depth of the present moment. The mind also uses the strategy of seeking. It convinces us that happiness, peace, or fulfillment lie in some future state or achievement. This perpetual seeking keeps us always striving, never arriving, and unable to fully inhabit the now. Recognizing these mind strategies is the first step in transcending them. By becoming aware of how our minds pull us away from the present moment, we can begin to choose presence over avoidance. We can learn to observe these strategies without being caught up in them, creating space for a deeper connection with the now. Chapter 25. Loss of Now. The core delusion. The loss of now is the fundamental delusion that underlies much of human suffering. It's the mistaken belief that life is happening somewhere other than here, in some time other than now. This core delusion keeps us perpetually seeking, always striving to get to some imagined future state where we believe we'll finally be happy, peaceful, or fulfilled. At the root of this delusion is our identification with the thinking mind. We believe we are our thoughts, our personal history, our projections about the future. This identification creates a sense of self that exists in psychological time, always slightly out of sync with the reality of the present moment. The loss of now manifests in various ways. We might find ourselves constantly planning, always focused on what's next, rather than fully engaging with what's here. Or we might dwell on the past, replaying old memories or harboring resentments, unable to fully let go and be present. This core delusion also shows up in our relationships. We often fail to truly listen to others, our minds busy formulating responses or making judgments instead of being fully present with the person in front of us. We miss the depth and richness of our connections because we're not fully there. In our work lives, the loss of now can lead to a constant sense of stress and pressure. We're always rushing to the next task, the next deadline, unable to find satisfaction or peace in our current activities. This perpetual hurry robs us of the joy and creativity that can arise when we're fully engaged in the present moment. The loss of now even affects our experience of nature and beauty. We might walk through a beautiful landscape, our minds so preoccupied with thoughts that we barely notice our surroundings. We miss the vibrant aliveness of the world around us because we're lost in our mental abstractions. Recognizing this core delusion is the first step in awakening to the reality of the now. It involves seeing clearly how our minds pull us away from the present moment and learning to bring our attention back, again and again, to what is actually happening right here, right now. Chapter 26. Ordinary unconsciousness and deep unconsciousness. Unconsciousness, in the context of spiritual awakening, refers to the state of being identified with the thinking mind and disconnected from the deeper reality of the present moment. This unconsciousness can manifest in different degrees, which we can broadly categorize as ordinary unconsciousness and deep unconsciousness. Ordinary unconsciousness is the common state of most people in their day-to-day lives. In this state, we're caught up in the constant stream of mental noise, planning, worrying, judging, analyzing. We're operating on autopilot, reacting to life situations based on conditioned patterns rather than responding from a place of presence and awareness. In ordinary unconsciousness, we're not fully present in our experiences. We might be physically engaged in an activity, but mentally we're elsewhere. This creates a subtle but persistent sense of unease or dissatisfaction, as we're never fully here to experience the richness of the present moment. Deep unconsciousness, on the other hand, is a more intense state of disconnection from the now. This might manifest as severe anxiety, depression, or addiction. In deep unconsciousness, we're completely identified with our mental, emotional pain body, unable to step back and observe our thoughts and emotions. Deep unconsciousness often involves intense resistance to the present moment. We might be consumed by regret about the past or fear about the future, unable to accept what is happening now. This resistance creates tremendous suffering and can lead to destructive behaviors. Both ordinary and deep unconsciousness are characterized by a loss of awareness of being, the deeper, unchanging essence of who we are, beyond our thoughts and emotions. In these states, we mistake the content of our consciousness, thoughts, emotions, sensations, for who we are, losing touch with the awareness in which all these experiences arise. The journey of awakening involves recognizing these states of unconsciousness and gradually bringing more presence and awareness into our daily lives. This doesn't mean we'll never experience unconsciousness again, but we can learn to catch ourselves more quickly when we've become lost in thought or emotion. Practices like meditation and mindfulness can help us cultivate greater awareness of our unconscious patterns. By regularly observing our thoughts and emotions without judgment, we can begin to disidentify from them and connect more deeply with the present moment. As we become more conscious, we may find that ordinary unconsciousness becomes less frequent and deep unconsciousness occurs rarely, if at all. We become more capable of meeting life's challenges from a place of presence and clarity, rather than reacting from conditioned patterns of thought and behavior. Chapter 27. What are they seeking? The question, what are they seeking, invites us to examine the underlying motivations that drive human behavior. At the surface level, people seem to be seeking a wide variety of things: wealth, success, love, recognition, security, pleasure. But when we look deeper, we find that all of these external pursuits are really attempts to fulfill a more fundamental need. Ultimately, what everyone is seeking is a sense of completeness, of wholeness. We have a deep-seated feeling that something is missing, that we're somehow incomplete or inadequate as we are. This sense of lack drives us to seek fulfillment in external objects, achievements, or relationships. However, this seeking is based on a misunderstanding. The completeness we're looking for is not something that can be found outside ourselves. It's our true nature, always present beneath the surface of our thoughts and emotions. The very act of seeking reinforces the illusion that what we're looking for is somewhere else, in some future time or different circumstance. Many people seek happiness or peace. They believe that if they can just achieve certain goals or acquire certain things, they'll finally be content. But this happiness is always conditional and temporary. True peace and joy come from connecting with our essential nature, which is already complete and at peace. Others are seeking a sense of identity or purpose. They try to define themselves through their roles, achievements, or possessions. But any identity based on external factors is inherently unstable and unfulfilling. Our true identity is the awareness in which all experiences, including our sense of self, arise. Some people are seeking escape from pain or discomfort. They might use various distractions or addictions to avoid facing their inner turmoil, but this avoidance only perpetuates suffering. True freedom comes from facing our pain with presence and awareness, allowing it to be as it is, without resistance. Many are seeking love or connection. They believe that finding the right relationship will complete them. But the love and connection we're really seeking is our own essence, our inherent oneness with all of life. When we connect with this essence, we can experience deep, unconditional love that's not dependent on external circumstances. Recognizing what we're really seeking is a crucial step on the path of awakening. When we see that the completeness we're looking for is already here, always present in this moment, we can stop our restless seeking and start to experience the fullness of life as it is. This doesn't mean we stop engaging in activities or pursuing goals, but our actions come from a place of fullness rather than lack. We can enjoy the journey of life without being driven by a desperate need to arrive at some imagined future state of completion. As we align with our true nature, we may find that many of the things we were seeking externally come to us naturally. But more importantly, we discover a deep sense of peace and aliveness that's independent of external circumstances. The very thing we've been seeking all along. Chapter 28. Dissolving ordinary unconsciousness. Dissolving ordinary unconsciousness is a crucial step on the path to spiritual awakening. It involves breaking free from the habitual patterns of thought and behavior that keep us disconnected from the present moment. The first step in dissolving ordinary unconsciousness is simply becoming aware of it. We need to catch ourselves in the act of being unconscious, lost in thought, reacting automatically, or operating on autopilot. This awareness itself begins to create space around our unconscious patterns. One powerful practice for dissolving ordinary unconsciousness is mindfulness. By regularly bringing our attention to the present moment, to our breath, our bodily sensations, or our immediate environment, we strengthen our ability to stay present. We become more attuned to the subtle ways in which we drift into unconsciousness. Another important aspect is learning to observe our thoughts and emotions without getting caught up in them. We can practice watching our mental activity as if we were watching clouds pass in the sky, without judging or trying to change anything. This creates a separation between our awareness and the content of our consciousness. Bringing presence into our daily activities is also crucial. Instead of rushing through tasks on autopilot, we can practice giving our full attention to whatever we're doing, whether it's washing dishes, walking, or having a conversation. This not only dissolves unconsciousness, but also enriches our experience of life. It's important to be patient and compassionate with ourselves in this process. Ordinary unconsciousness is deeply ingrained and will inevitably fall back into old patterns. The key is to gently bring ourselves back to presence each time we notice we've drifted away. Regular meditation practice can be a powerful tool for dissolving ordinary unconsciousness. It provides dedicated time for us to observe our minds and cultivate presence. Over time, this practice spills over into our daily lives, making it easier to maintain awareness throughout the day. As we dissolve ordinary unconsciousness, we may find that life becomes richer and more vibrant. We're more fully present for our experiences, more responsive to life's challenges, and more connected to the deeper dimensions of our being. Chapter 29. Freedom from unhappiness. Unhappiness is a pervasive human condition, but it's not an inevitable one. True freedom from unhappiness comes not from changing our external circumstances, but from changing our relationship to our inner experience. The first step towards freedom from unhappiness is recognizing that our unhappiness is not caused by the situations in our lives, but by our thoughts about those situations. It's our mental interpretations and judgments that create our suffering, not the events themselves. A crucial insight is understanding that unhappiness is a mental, emotional pattern, not our true nature. When we identify with our unhappiness, believing, "I am unhappy," we reinforce and prolong it. But when we can observe our unhappy thoughts and feelings without identifying with them, we create space for a shift to occur. Practicing acceptance is key to freedom from unhappiness. This doesn't mean we have to like everything that happens, but that we stop arguing with reality. When we accept what is, we free up enormous amounts of energy that we can then use to respond effectively to life's challenges. Another important aspect is learning to be present with our unhappiness without trying to escape or suppress it. Often our attempts to avoid uncomfortable feelings only intensify them. By fully feeling our emotions with presence and compassion, we allow them to move through us and dissipate naturally. Cultivating gratitude can be a powerful antidote to unhappiness. By regularly focusing on what we appreciate in our lives, we shift our attention from what we lack to the abundance that's already present. This doesn't mean denying difficulties, but balancing our awareness to include the positive aspects of our experience. It's also crucial to recognize that seeking happiness in the future is a trap that perpetuates unhappiness. True contentment can only be found in the present moment. By fully embracing the now, we can discover a deep sense of aliveness and peace that's not dependent on external circumstances. Meditation and mindfulness practices can be powerful tools for cultivating freedom from unhappiness. These practices help us to disidentify from our thoughts and connect with the awareness that underlies all of our experiences, an awareness that is inherently peaceful and content. As we practice these approaches, we may find that unhappiness loses its grip on us. We become more capable of experiencing joy and contentment, not as fleeting states dependent on external factors, but as natural expressions of our true nature. Chapter 30. Wherever you are, be there totally. The practice of being totally present, wherever we are, is a powerful antidote to the mind's tendency to escape the present moment. It's about bringing our full attention and energy to whatever we're experiencing right now, rather than being lost in thoughts about the past or future. Being totally present doesn't mean we have to like or approve of our current situation. It simply means we're fully engaged with what is, rather than resisting it or wishing it were different. This complete acceptance of the present moment paradoxically opens up the possibility for change and transformation. One way to practice being totally present is to bring our full attention to our sensory experience. We can notice the sights, sounds, smells, tastes, and physical sensations of this moment. This anchors us in the reality of now, rather than the mind's projections about what should or could be. In our daily activities, we can practice giving our complete attention to whatever we're doing. Whether we're eating, walking, working, or talking with someone, we can be fully there, not allowing our minds to wander to other times or places. This not only dissolves unconsciousness, but also enhances the quality of our experiences and our performance. Being totally present also involves fully accepting our inner experience. If we're feeling emotions like anger, sadness, or fear, we can practice being present with these feelings without trying to change or escape them. This presence allows emotions to move through us more freely, rather than getting stuck. It's important to note that being totally present doesn't mean we can't plan for the future or learn from the past. It means that when we do engage in planning or reflection, we're fully present with that activity, rather than being lost in daydreams or worries. Practicing presence in challenging situations can be particularly powerful. When we face difficulties with our full attention, we often find we have resources and capabilities we didn't know we had. We're able to respond more effectively and creatively when we're not caught up in mental drama about the situation. As we cultivate the ability to be totally present wherever we are, we may find that life becomes richer and more fulfilling. We're no longer always waiting for the next moment or escaping to a mental fantasy. Instead, we're fully alive to the depth and richness of our immediate experience. This practice of total presence is not about achieving a particular state of mind. It's about opening ourselves fully to whatever is happening right now. In this openness, we may discover a profound sense of aliveness, peace, and connection that is our true nature. Chapter 31. The inner purpose of your life's journey. The inner purpose of your life's journey is fundamentally different from your outer purpose. While your outer purpose is concerned with goals, achievements, and what you do in the world, your inner purpose is about awakening to your true nature and aligning with the present moment. Your inner purpose is not something you need to search for or create. It's already here, in this moment, waiting to be recognized. It's the deepening of your presence, the expansion of your consciousness, and the realization of your oneness with all of life. One aspect of your inner purpose is to bring the quality of presence into everything you do. This means being fully engaged with the present moment, whether you're performing a mundane task or facing a significant life challenge. By doing this, you infuse your actions with a higher level of consciousness. Another facet of your inner purpose is to awaken from identification with the thinking mind. This involves recognizing that you are not your thoughts, but the awareness in which thoughts arise. As you disidentify from your mental narratives, you open yourself to a deeper dimension of being. Your inner purpose also includes the practice of acceptance. This doesn't mean passive resignation, but a deep acknowledgement of the present moment as it is. When you accept what is, you align yourself with the flow of life rather than resisting it. Part of your inner journey is to recognize and dissolve the ego, the false self, created by mental conditioning. As you become aware of the ego's strategies and learn to disidentify from them, you create space for your true nature to emerge. Your inner purpose involves awakening to the interconnectedness of all life. As you deepen in presence, you may experience a profound sense of oneness with existence. This realization naturally gives rise to compassion and a desire to alleviate suffering in the world. It's important to understand that your inner purpose is not separate from your outer purpose. As you align with your inner purpose, your outer actions become more powerful and effective. You begin to act from a place of presence rather than ego, which often leads to more fulfilling and harmonious results in the external world. Ultimately, the inner purpose of your life's journey is to be fully present in each moment, to awaken to your true nature beyond thought, and to allow the power of now to flow through you into the world. This is not a destination to be reached, but a way of being to be lived in each moment. Chapter 32. The past cannot survive in your presence. The concept that the past cannot survive in your presence is a powerful insight into the nature of time and consciousness. It points to the fact that the past exists only as thoughts in the present moment, and that true presence dissolves these mental constructs of time. When we speak of the past, we're really referring to memories, mental reconstructions of events that no longer exist. These memories only have power over us when we give them our attention and belief. In the light of full presence, these mental images of the past lose their grip on our consciousness. One way to understand this is to bring your full attention to the present moment. Notice your immediate sensory experience, the sights, sounds, and physical sensations. In this state of presence, you'll find that thoughts about the past naturally subside. They may still arise, but they don't dominate your consciousness. This doesn't mean that we should forget the past or ignore its lessons. Rather, it's about changing our relationship to past events. Instead of being trapped in repetitive thoughts and emotions about what happened, we can access the past when it's useful, without being controlled by it. Presence dissolves the emotional charge of past events. When we're fully in the now, old hurts and resentments lose their power. We're able to see past events with greater clarity and perspective, free from the distorting lens of ego and emotional reactivity. This principle is particularly powerful when dealing with trauma or painful memories. By cultivating presence, we create a space of awareness that can hold and transform these difficult experiences. We learn to distinguish between the event itself, which is over, and our present thoughts about the event. Practicing presence also prevents us from continuously recreating the past in the present. Often, we interpret current situations through the filter of past experiences, reacting to the present moment as if it were the past. Full presence allows us to see each situation freshly, responding from a place of clarity rather than conditioned patterns. It's important to note that this doesn't happen all at once. Dissolving the past through presence is an ongoing practice. Each time we catch ourselves lost in thoughts about the past and bring our attention back to the now, we strengthen our ability to live in presence. As we cultivate this ability to be present, we may find that our relationship with time itself changes. Instead of feeling trapped by our past or anxious about our future, we discover a timeless dimension of being that is always available in the now. This is the space of true freedom, where the past cannot survive and the future hasn't yet come into being. Chapter 33. The state of presence. The state of presence is a fundamental shift in consciousness where you are fully aligned with the present moment. It's a state of heightened awareness and aliveness that transcends the constant chatter of the mind and the pull of past and future. In the state of presence, you're acutely aware of your surroundings and your inner experience, but without the usual mental commentary. You're simply here, now, fully engaged with what is. This state is characterized by a deep sense of peace and clarity that comes from being anchored in the now. Presence isn't about achieving a particular feeling or eliminating all thoughts. It's about becoming aware of the space in which all experiences, including thoughts and emotions, arise. In this space, you can observe your mental and emotional activity without being completely identified with it. One key aspect of presence is the ability to be with whatever arises without resistance. Whether you're experiencing joy, pain, boredom, or excitement, in the state of presence, you can allow these experiences to be as they are without trying to change or escape them. Cultivating presence involves regularly bringing your attention to the present moment. This might mean focusing on your breath, feeling the sensations in your body, or simply noticing the sounds and sights around you. It's a practice of continually returning to the now whenever you notice your mind has wandered. In the state of presence, you may experience a dissolution of the boundary between self and other. There's a sense of connection and oneness with all of life that naturally arises when you're fully present. This can lead to spontaneous feelings of love, compassion, and joy. Presence also brings a different quality to your actions. Instead of operating on autopilot or being driven by mental concepts of past and future, your actions flow from a deep alignment with the present moment. This often results in greater effectiveness and creativity in your endeavors. As you deepen your capacity for presence, You may find that it becomes easier to access this state in challenging situations. Presence becomes a refuge, a source of strength and clarity that you can turn to when facing life's difficulties. Remember, the state of presence is not a distant goal to be achieved, but your natural state of being. It's always available, waiting to be recognized beneath the layers of mental noise and emotional reactivity. The more you practice returning to presence, the more it becomes your default way of experiencing life. Chapter 34. It's not what you think it is. The state of presence, the essence of spiritual awakening, is fundamentally different from what most people imagine it to be. It's not a particular thought, emotion, or experience. It's not a state of perpetual bliss or the absence of all problems. It's something far more profound and, paradoxically, much simpler than our minds can grasp. Presence is not something you can think your way into. In fact, excessive thinking is often the biggest obstacle to experiencing true presence. It's not about having the right concepts or beliefs, but about directly experiencing the reality of this moment beyond mental constructs. Many seekers mistakenly believe that spiritual awakening is about achieving a permanent state of happiness or peace. But presence includes all states: joy, sorrow, excitement, boredom. It's not about feeling good all the time, but about being fully with whatever is arising in this moment, present or unpleasant. Presence is often misunderstood as a form of passive acceptance or indifference. But true presence is deeply engaged with life. It's a state of heightened aliveness and clarity that allows for more effective and harmonious action, not inaction or apathy. Some people think that being present means having no thoughts. But presence isn't about emptying the mind of all content. It's about recognizing the space of awareness in which thoughts arise. In presence, thoughts may still come and go, but you're no longer completely identified with them. There's a common misconception that spiritual awakening is something that happens once and then you're done. But presence is not a one-time event or achievement. It's an ongoing practice of returning to the now, again and again, as you notice yourself drifting into unconsciousness. Many spiritual seekers believe that presence or awakening will solve all their problems. But presence doesn't necessarily change your external circumstances. What it changes is your relationship to those circumstances, allowing you to respond from a place of clarity rather than reactivity. Presence is not something you can grasp with the mind or put into words. Any description or concept of presence is not the actual experience itself. It's something that must be directly realized, beyond thought and language. Understanding what presence is not can help clear away misconceptions that might be hindering your ability to recognize it. Remember, presence is your natural state of being. It's not something you need to acquire or achieve, but something to remember and return to here and now. Chapter 35. The esoteric meaning of waiting. The esoteric meaning of waiting is fundamentally different from how we usually understand the term. In the context of spiritual awakening, waiting doesn't mean postponing life until some future event occurs. Instead, it refers to a state of alert presence, a deep attunement to the present moment. This form of waiting is not about anticipating something to happen in the future. It's about being fully available to what is happening now. It's a state of readiness, of openness to life as it unfolds in each moment. Esoteric waiting involves suspending our habitual mental activity. Instead of constantly thinking, planning, or worrying, we enter a state of quiet alertness. In this state, we're not projecting into the future or dwelling on the past. We're simply here now, attentive to whatever arises. This kind of waiting is active, not passive. It requires a continuous choice to remain present, to resist the pull of unconscious thinking and doing. It's a practice of repeatedly bringing our attention back to the now whenever we notice it has wandered. In esoteric waiting, we're not waiting for anything in particular. We're waiting on life itself, allowing it to reveal itself to us without our mental interference. This attitude of openness and receptivity allows for insights and possibilities that our thinking mind might overlook. This form of waiting also involves a deep trust in life. Instead of trying to control everything, we learn to align ourselves with the flow of existence. We recognize that life often unfolds in ways we can't predict or plan for, and we open ourselves to this mystery. Esoteric waiting can be particularly powerful in challenging situations. When we're faced with difficulties or uncertainties, instead of becoming anxious or trying to force solutions, we can practice this alert waiting. This often allows for more creative and effective responses to emerge. It's important to note that this kind of waiting doesn't mean we never take action. Rather, our actions arise from a place of presence and alignment with the present moment, rather than from mental projections or emotional reactivity. The practice of esoteric waiting can lead to a profound shift in our experience of time. Instead of always rushing towards the next moment, we learn to fully inhabit this one. We discover that life is always happening now, and that by being fully present, we can experience its richness and depth. Ultimately, the esoteric meaning of waiting points to a way of being in the world that is deeply attuned to the present moment. It's a practice of presence that can transform our relationship with ourselves, others, and life itself. Chapter 36. Beauty arises in the stillness of your presence. Beauty, in its deepest sense, is not merely an attribute of certain objects or experiences. It's a state of consciousness that arises when we are fully present and still within ourselves. This beauty is not dependent on external factors, but emerges from our own inner stillness and openness to the present moment. When we're fully present, we perceive the world with fresh eyes, free from the filters of our habitual thoughts and judgments. In this state of presence, we can recognize the inherent beauty in all things, even in what we might normally consider ordinary or unattractive. Stillness is key to perceiving this deeper beauty. When our minds are constantly busy with thoughts, we often miss the subtle beauty that surrounds us. But as we cultivate inner stillness, we become more attuned to the beauty that's always here, waiting to be noticed. This doesn't mean we need to eliminate all thoughts to experience beauty. Rather, it's about creating space around our thoughts, a stillness from which we can observe both our inner and outer worlds with greater clarity and appreciation. In the stillness of presence, we may find beauty in unexpected places. The play of light on a wall, the intricate patterns in a leaf, the sound of rain, things we might normally overlook, can become sources of wonder and joy when perceived with full presence. This approach to beauty goes beyond mere aesthetics. It's not just about recognizing pleasing forms or harmonious compositions. It's about perceiving the underlying aliveness in all things, the sacred essence that permeates existence, when we're quiet enough to notice it. Cultivating this ability to perceive beauty through presence can profoundly enrich our lives. It allows us to find joy and wonder in our daily experiences, rather than always seeking beauty in special occasions or extraordinary events. Moreover, as we learn to recognize beauty through the stillness of our presence, we may find that we ourselves become more beautiful. Not in a superficial sense, but in the way we move through the world, interact with others, and express ourselves. Our actions and words begin to arise from a place of presence and alignment with life. It's important to remember that this beauty arising from stillness is always available to us. It's not something we need to create or achieve, but something we can tune into by bringing our full presence to this moment. Each time we do this, we strengthen our capacity to perceive and embody this deeper beauty. Ultimately, recognizing that beauty arises in the stillness of your presence is an invitation to live more fully in the now. It's a reminder that the richness and wonder of life is always here, waiting to be experienced when we're present enough to notice it. Chapter 37. Realizing pure consciousness. Realizing pure consciousness is the ultimate goal of many spiritual traditions, yet it's often misunderstood. Pure consciousness is not a state to be achieved, but our fundamental nature to be recognized. It's the awareness that underlies all of our experiences, thoughts, and emotions. To realize pure consciousness, we must first understand what it is not. It's not a particular thought, emotion, or sensation. It's not a special state of mind or a mystical experience. Pure consciousness is the aware space in which all experiences arise and subside. One way to approach the realization of pure consciousness is through self-inquiry, by consistently asking, "Who am I?" or "What is aware of this experience?" We can begin to shift our attention from the contents of our consciousness to consciousness itself. Meditation is another powerful tool for realizing pure consciousness. As we practice observing our thoughts and sensations without getting caught up in them, we naturally begin to recognize the awareness that's doing the observing. This awareness is pure consciousness. It's important to note that realizing pure consciousness doesn't mean eliminating thoughts or emotions. Rather, it's about recognizing that you are not your thoughts or emotions, but the awareness in which they appear. This shift in identity from content to context is the essence of spiritual awakening. Pure consciousness is always present, whether we recognize it or not. It's the silent witness to all of our experiences, the unchanging backdrop to the ever-changing drama of our lives. Realizing this can bring a profound sense of peace and freedom, as we're no longer completely identified with the temporary contents of our experience. As we deepen our recognition of pure consciousness, we may find that our perception of reality shifts. The boundaries between self and other, subject and object, begin to dissolve. We may experience a sense of oneness with all of existence, recognizing that the same consciousness that's aware within us is aware within all beings. Realizing pure consciousness is not a one-time event, but an ongoing process of remembering and returning to our true nature. It involves repeatedly shifting our attention from the objects of awareness to awareness itself, until this becomes our natural way of being. It's crucial to approach this process with patience and compassion. The habit of identifying with our thoughts and emotions is deeply ingrained, and it takes time and practice to shift this perspective. Each moment of recognizing pure consciousness, no matter how brief, is a step towards living from this deeper truth. Chapter 38. Christ. The reality of your divine presence. The concept of Christ, in its esoteric meaning, goes far beyond religious doctrine or historical figures. It points to the reality of your divine presence, the deepest essence of who you are, beyond name and form. This Christ consciousness is not something external to be worshipped, but your own true nature to be realized. Christ consciousness can be understood as the state of full presence and awakening. It's the recognition of your oneness with the source of all being, what some traditions call God or the divine. This state transcends the individual ego and connects us with the universal consciousness that permeates all of existence. To experience Christ consciousness is to be fully present in the now. It's a state of heightened awareness where the mental noise of the ego subsides and we experience reality directly without the filters of our conditioned mind. In this state, we recognize our essential oneness with all of life. The reality of your divine presence is not something to be created or achieved. It's already here, always present, beneath the surface of our thoughts and emotions. The spiritual journey is about removing the obstacles that prevent us from recognizing this truth. One way to connect with this Christ consciousness is through the practice of presence. By continually bringing our attention back to the present moment, we create space for our divine nature to emerge. We begin to experience the aliveness and peace that are the hallmarks of our true self. It's important to understand that realizing your divine presence doesn't mean becoming something other than what you are. It's about recognizing your true nature, which has always been here. It's the I am presence that exists prior to all thoughts, emotions, and identifications. The reality of your divine presence is not separate from your everyday life. As you deepen your connection with this dimension of yourself, you may find that it infuses all your activities with a new quality of consciousness. Your actions become more aligned with the flow of life, arising from a place of presence rather than ego. Recognizing your divine presence can profoundly transform your relationship with yourself and others. As you experience your own divine nature, you naturally begin to see it in others as well. This leads to greater compassion, understanding, and a sense of interconnectedness with all beings. Remember, the reality of your divine presence is not a distant goal to be reached in the future. It's here now, waiting to be recognized in this very moment. Each time you bring your full attention to the present, you open yourself to the possibility of experiencing this deeper dimension of your being.